Good morning. We're starting 5 minutes late, but that's all right. We're thrilled you're all here. Welcome to the University of Arizona Cooperative Extension Seed Library webinar. Today is an all-day webinar on Zoom, and we will be recording. So if you don't want your face recorded, just you can turn off your video. We will be sending out the link of the recording to everyone that RSVP'd, and we will be posting it on a University of Arizona Cooperative Extension YouTube site. So get excited. My name is Elise Gornish, and I'm a Cooperative Extension Specialist in Ecological Restoration at the University of Arizona. And I'm co-organizing this webinar with Anita Thompson, who's also from University of Arizona Cooperative Extension. Anita, I don't know if you want to say hi now or if you want me to wait for your long introduction for your talk.
Oh, wait, thank you.
Awesome. Okay, you guys are going to hear a lot more from Anita in a few minutes. So, for anyone who's still filtering in, we invite you to introduce yourself in the chat. That way, later on, people can go through and say, like, oh, there's another seed library in North Dakota. Let's connect. Okay. So, take a little while. There will be a ton of people. We have 85 people currently on Zoom right now. We expect more. We have over 200 people who registered, which is awesome. So it means people are super thrilled about seeds and seed libraries, as they should be. So the way today is going to work is we're going to have a series of speakers. Please make sure you're muted during the presentation. And unfortunately, because there's so many people, it's going to be a little difficult to have conversation. So during the talks or afterwards during the question session, please put in your questions into the chat and I will moderate those at the end of the session. Hopefully everyone has the agenda. If not, during the breaks and during lunch, I will put them up. We have time built into the agenda for a little bit, a couple more minutes here, a little less minutes here. So don't worry about all that. We're going to have our first talk that's going to be about 45 minutes, and then we're going to have a break. We'll have two more talks after that, and then we're giving you guys lunch off. And so you'll have some time for lunch, and then that will be followed by another few talks, a break, and another few talks. And it's really our goal to not only share information, but to facilitate sort of the communication and connection between people who are doing seed libraries and maintaining seeds and native seed swaps and all this stuff, both within your region and across nationwide and worldwide. So we're thrilled you're here. In addition to the questions for the speakers, if there's anything you'd like to see in the future that Anita and I can put together for you, please put it into the chat or you can email us. During the talks, I will be putting the emails of the speakers into the chat box. And so if there's a question that you have that doesn't get answered, later on you can email the speaker directly, you can email us, and we're hoping that this is just one of many workshops and activities that kind of bring us all together to talk about this and to enhance the sort of availability and movement of native seed. So we're going to start a little early on Anita's talk, but that's okay because we want to give her plenty of time. And so just make sure that during the talks you keep yourself muted. And if you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat. And welcome. So our first speaker is Anita Thompson from Cooperative Extension at the University of Arizona and one of the co-organizers of this workshop. So Anita is the Assistant Area Agent for Navajo and Apache counties in Arizona. She runs seed libraries in Holbrook and St. John and provides support for partner seed libraries. One of her programs is Northeastern Arizona Seeds, and its focus is to bring knowledge and support around growing, saving, testing, and collecting seeds across many facets of the seed industry, including seed libraries, organic production, and the native wild seed industry and use. She is currently in classes at CSU in the Seed Technology program and at the University of Arizona in GIS and Historic Preservation. When not at work, she is usually found at her small-scale seed and herb farm or is out playing with native plants. We love that. So welcome, Anita.
Hi, thank you. Elise, can you make me co-host again? Zoom kicked me out and I was trying to share. Yay. All right. Sounds good. And I'm assuming everyone can hear me okay? All right, I'm going to share my screen. and I'm going to go ahead and present my screen. Can everyone, I can't see the screens anymore, so can everyone see my screen?
I can.
We can
Perfect.
see it.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here. I'm so excited to work with Elise. That is kind of one of the things that when we work together, it's so exciting and so passionate to have a person that understands what I'm talking about. And so I work a lot with the legalities of Arizona seed law and how that plays within seed libraries. I generally work a lot in seeds, but I was always interested in why seed libraries were treated the way they were. So I started researching into it, and my original my original title when I started was Seed Library Legalities in Arizona Seed Law. And then all the registrations kept pouring in, and people from Canada and Australia and Beijing and all over the United States were registering. And I was like, well, this is going to be relevant. And so late last night, I renamed it Non-Commercial Seed Sharing Location. It just doesn't sound as nice as Seed Library. And I'll get into why that I kind of modified that title. So about me, I am the assistant area agent for University of Arizona Cooperative Extension. I cover many topics. My area is Navajo and Apache counties, which takes me from the Utah border to the New Mexico border down around the Clifton. Oh, actually, I'm up now, right around the Alpine area, around the Mogollon Rim, and then back on the edge of Coconino County. So it's a large area, and I have a large, diverse group of people that I work with. I cover many topics from livestock and range to horticulture, master gardeners. My favorite is seeds. And I can talk about seeds all day long with anyone who is able to sit down for more than 5 minutes and tolerate that. So yes, feel free at any point if you just want to talk about seeds, I'm here for you. I have a small farm where I grow flowers, food like vegetables, herbs, and seeds, and I also raise goats. I also work a lot with the native plant and plant seed industry. My passion in seed is foundation seed and historic variety stabilization. So getting seeds that are very historic in nature, growing them and stabilizing a lot of their properties so that we can bring them back into the mainstream for biodiversity and also for color and different things in our food supply. And my background is in ecology. I have a background as a restoration ecologist and a forester, a silviculturist. I worked a lot in nurseries with planting trees. And I also worked a lot in fire ecology and disturbance ecology. But farming is my happy place. And I do have a podcast that I do. It's called Sowing History, where I basically talk about really cool old agriculture, and varieties and a whole lot of different things. So I tend to keep really busy around these topics. I do, real quick before I get into legalities, I want to talk about my programs and why they're so important to me, why this started my passion. So I run a program called Northeastern Arizona Seeds Program, and part of that program is the seed library. And this came about during COVID, where I was talking to people. I was a new agent, and I was like, what can I do to help you? And there were people that had no money, no way to buy seeds, and they didn't know what to do. They wanted to learn, but they didn't have the resources. So as part of being an extension agent, I need a reason. I can't just go to my boss and say, hey, I'm going to do this. There has to be research or something behind it. So I gathered research and I said, look, I pulled the Distressed Communities Index, which in the kind of the northeastern area is my communities. And this is based on several different factors. I have a link here if you do want to check it out. But I work in very distressed communities. I looked at the census to see average number of households, how much people were making. And then I took our extension, our statewide needs assessment. And it's really hard to see, but one of the at 95% access to affordable and healthy food is a top priority in Navajo County and also in Apache County. So I pondered, what can I do with my skill set? And I created 2 seed libraries. Originally, I started at Holbrook as the trial, and then I went over to added to St. John's, and then I added 3 additional seed libraries at actual libraries with donated seed or purchased seed. All this seed was open pollinated heirloom that was donated or purchased from Seed Savers Exchange, So Right Seeds, True Leaf Market, Native Seed Search, and Hudson Valley Seed. And I was able to get grants for a lot of it. However, last year we ended up spending almost $5,000 on seed to support the seed libraries. So it turned out to be kind of a struggle to financially support it. I'll talk about why that is in a little bit. But what we did is I created what I did. I got one of those black and white printers, thermal printers, and I created all the labels. We'd get the seeds, and I'd have master gardeners and volunteers. They came and they volunteered their time to package the seed, and then we would have these boxes of seeds that we were able to donate to the libraries and then bring to my seed libraries. And it was a great event. I mean, we had so much fun. It was so fun to try to have the kids learn to put the seeds in the package rather than all over the Show Low library floor. So we had so much fun. My goals for my program was to increase access to high quality open pollinated seed to communities who may not have had access to it. Improve awareness around arid tolerant varieties in our counties. We are extremely arid. We have very difficult soils, and a lot of standard varieties don't grow as well as maybe arid tolerant varieties. And increase understanding of open pollination and seed saving, and that's to increase food independence and self-sustainability. My pros so far, 3 years in, I've provided over 1,000 packets of seed to local communities over the 3 years. And I do also do gift, like I guess, gift packages to up on Dene Navajo Nation. I think we sent one over to Hopi, and there's a few others where we got culturally relevant seed that we just basically was like, this is something that belongs to you. So sent that out to the seed libraries there. Received many grants from seed companies, and then I did partner with 3 more libraries. We have a waiting list of 7 libraries now, but again, I have no funds. So I have petitioning to get funds, but I don't know how that's going to work. I added a cover crop and a native seed library, and the native seed library is great. We love it, and Elise is 99.9% to thank for this. The cover crop library was a kind of one of those aha moments. We have so many people interested in cover crops, but in order to buy them, you normally need to spend a lot of money on a big package because they only really sell them in big packages. So we bought the big packages and broke them down. So if someone's like, I want to try barley, or I want to try this combination, they come into the seed library, they take small amounts, they trial them, and if they work, they know they can buy it. So we added that. My cons that I ran into, which were super frustrating, patrons were treating the seed library as a seed store. Why don't you have this? Why don't you have that? I want this. And that was very difficult because seed was donated or purchased out of funds that were kind of scraped together. And so when someone came in, it was really demoralizing to have the master gardeners there do all this work, and someone was coming in, well, I don't want that, I want you to get this for me. And that was difficult. I would sit in the corner in my chair like, this is not your audience, this is not your audience, let it go. I went to a couple seed swaps where people were taking the seed from the seed libraries and selling it, and I do understand completely how tight money is for a lot of people. But that was definitely something that I could not justify to the grantors of our seed why, this may or may not have been happening. And then sustainability, which is one of the questions that a lot of people ask, is how do you get enough help to sustain it over the long term? And it is extremely difficult. So people have fluctuating schedules and views and time and everything. So it's very hard to maintain the sustainability of it over time. And I do know that, like, people like me who are very much like, it's fine, I'll just do it. It's not sustainable. So I do rely a lot on my master gardeners. And I call them mine because I claim them as my friends and my gardening family because they have actually taken this farmer under their wing and are teaching her how to actually garden instead of farm. So working with the master gardeners and being able to maybe increase sustainability. So that's just a little overview of my seed libraries. I do love them. They're just an amazing experience when I get to talk to everybody. And Elise, if there's anything that jumps up, I can't see the screen, so just jump in and let me know.
Will do.
Thank you. All right. So I want to start off by saying I'm not a lawyer. This is not legal advice. This is something that I studied and I looked at, and I wanted to formulate why this was affecting my community so much, and what I could do to assist them in education. So part of the seed world is understanding that there's a very strong commercial part of the seed industry, for better or for worse. There's a lot of opinions. As an agent, I'm neutral. As a seed farmer, I have my own personal views, especially because I focus on heirloom varieties and open pollinated varieties. Um, so I tend to try to look at it from a more neutral environment. With the rules and regulations, you look at kind of three different levels. I'm only going to hit on two today. I'm going to cover federal and I'm going to look at state. The cultural, there's a lot more behind it and there's a lot more discussions behind it, but that is culturally significant varieties and traditional ecological knowledge based on those varieties. So that's a different subject to have a conversation about. Today, I'm just going to kind of talk about federal and state. And under federal, there's a lot of players in the game, if you will. The Federal Seed Act is put forth by the US government, which is a Truth in Marketing Act. And that basically is so the consumer gets what they're told is on the package. There's the Plant Variety Protection Act, which is going to um, protect seed breeders and varieties for a certain amount of time. And then you have the Association of American Seed Control Officials, and they have the Recommended Uniform State Seed Law, or RUSSEL, which provides guidance to states on seed laws. This came into play when, in the timeline, and we'll talk about this in a bit, when the timeline of the issues with seed libraries came in the early 2010s. Sounds so weird saying that, in the early 2010s. At the state level, a lot of times you're working with the State Department of Agriculture, especially with your noxious weed lists and packaging guidelines. And then also you might have city, county, or local rules regarding maybe seed use. It's very rare with seed libraries, but every now and then you'll see it pop up. Organic Seed Alliance is one of my favorite resources. If you have 10 minutes and you're really, okay, sorry, if you have like 10 hours and you're really into understanding the background of seed, they have some really great resources. But this was a good timeline I found that explains kind of how the seed industry developed over time and what led into all the different all the pieces of it. And you can see in the 1900s and in the 2000s is when you're seeing a lot of the legalities kind of coming in. And that's going to be about utility patents, consolidations and privatization, so less competition, and then being able to, like, hybrids started to really pick up. There's always that argument with hybrids. Hybrids, were always a thing. Like, we always did hybrids. It was just looked at in a different context. So now we're looking at hybrids more in the 2000s, mid 1900s to 2000s. Hybrids are more now of a commercialized as regarding that particular context. So in the 2000s, the biggest thing is we were looking at the Monsanto, which was suing the farmers for infringing patents, and then companies are starting to stack traits or trait forcing to be able to force those royalties. So this is a really great read, but this is a timeline that really shows when we started to transition from seed as a part of our lives to seed as a commodity. Seeds will always be part of our lives, but as more of a commodity. With that, there is the patents for plants under the the United States Patent and Trademark Office, and then the USDA regulations for quality and control. And these all, they don't sound like they would have anything to do with seed libraries, but it all starts to paint a picture of why we have guidance from state and federal officials on how seeds should be portrayed in seed libraries. So this is all at the federal level. I get it. This is all very overwhelming, overreaching. The thing is there's a valid reason behind it. And in like school where there was that one kid that always would kind of ruin everything. It sounds harsh, but there was always that one. You're like, oh my gosh, it's what happened. There's accidental and intentional pest and noxious weed introductions. And then patenting and protections for breeders. That is, people do make a livelihood on that. There needs to be some sort of compensation and protections for those. And then plant disease spread. So here's a couple pictures, or a few pictures. You have the a lot of pests like to hide in seed. And so you have the cabbage seed weevil, sorry, cabbage seed pod weevil, the seed cord maggot, and then the bean seed fly. And then, of course, we have our squash bug that likes to just, be everywhere. And some examples, I worked a lot with cheatgrass when I was working on my bachelor's degrees in Nevada at University of Reno. And cheatgrass, it's not a food, I get it, but the introduction of it is not a good thing. So it colonizes open dry habitat and it completely alter the ecosystem. And that's because it changes your fire frequency intensity. And if you live in Phoenix, you see this now with some of the grasses, the more invasive grasses down there, and we're seeing our saguaro lands being kind of changed. So this is kind of where we're going with this, but the introduction of cheatgrass in North America was several times. It wasn't just once. And that was contamination. And then also in Pullman, Washington, there was a deliberate introduction for research. So it was unintentional. The researchers were like, yeah, we were just testing this, but now, we're obviously changing. We're looking at some large effects. This happens also in the seed industry, and this can happen locally and on a larger scale. In my farm, I planted some morning glories, thinking that would be amazing. The hummingbirds would love it. Now I have a morning glory farm pretty much for 3 months out of the year, and I'm learning to modify that with some removal. So I didn't know. It was completely unintentional, but I now, my farm and neighbors also have morning glories. So it's just something to consider. Then this quote from the World Intellectual Property Organization talks about why the investment is important for these protections for seed and plant breeders. So when you're looking at how much money is put into creating these different varieties, they're looking at being able to protect their investment. And then the Association of American Seed Control Individuals or Officials, they have come up with the Russell, or they did come up with Russell, which is the recommended uniform state seed law. And that maintains a model for state and federal programs to maintain continuity of seed labeling, seed packaging, how seed is produced and tracked in the state level. With them, they had a amendment in 2016, and this was great work. I just want to give a shout out to those in the seed library industry that actively worked for this agreement and got this agreement, because this is what basically made seed libraries become able to function without having constant oversight. And the thing is, though, it's a non-commercial seed sharing situation. So seed library is kind of like the name that we call it. It's kind of a misnomer, because in this act it says you cannot ask, or in this recommendation, you cannot ask for seed back from people. You can't ask them to return it. If they do, it's good. And there's some other steps you might want to look at, but you cannot ask. And when you think of libraries, you check out a book and return it. So when I work with some of our local seed librarians, I just say, let's shift our mind now to maybe a different context. It's still a seed library, but when you go to the library, it's a safe place for a lot of people to sit and do computer work and use the internet and read. And it's not necessarily taking and giving. It is, but it isn't. So let's look at it from the fact of you're providing a service and you're providing this particular these seeds to the community. So instead of asking for it back, let's make that into a communication and an educational tool. So that's I'll kind of get into that in a little bit. But with this Russell Amendment, the name is non-commercial seed sharing. So you cannot have any monetary consideration or compensation to be returned to be transferred in return. It has labeling requirements, which are, I mean, they're not too bad. It's just they can get a little bit arduous. And then at each location involved with the thing, I actually think I have a slide for this. Let me move forward here. So here's the definition. So you cannot expect any services back in order for it to be non-commercial. Once you start expecting services, it becomes commercial and you are then held under seed law, seed regulation. Label requirements, they're very forward, just the species or the variety. Just remember, common names are really difficult because there might be, 10 different types of parsley. So, just trying to use more descriptive names or the botanical name. If it's been treated and if that treatment is accordance with applicable laws, if you can trace it. And then it has to be free from foreign material. And it has a size limit. And then you just have a statement on there that you don't have to do the germination or purity analysis, but you have to, if it was, you have to know where it was done. And we just add like it was not germination tested. And then it has to have a sign that says that you do not accept varietal purity. It may not meet germination standards, and that you do not accept anything that would violate the Plant Varietal Protection Act. That's what we did. Is what I did. I have just like a thermal printer, and it just printed out. I just made like the little pictures, and so here's my sugar pie pumpkin. And then I just put a little blurb on there, what it is, some planting notes, what it's good for, dates of maturity. But here's my source. So True Leaf Market was where I got these seeds. My seed library, this is where I handwrite in, is it going to Sholo? Was it going to Pine Top? Was it going to Holbrook? Like, where was it going? And I always added seed is sourced from open pollinated, non-GMO, and non-patented sources. Every attempt is made to ensure varieties are patent free and open source. Germination rates may vary. And I put that on there just to make sure that we kind of covered everything under those label requirements. It's not a perfect label, but we're still kind of working on it. Moving into the state of Arizona. And I know everyone's from different states and different countries. I was going to try to make a chart with every single like state that at least surrounded us. I ran out of time. We have a ton of seed libraries. I just snagged some logos from it, but for the Arizona part, our non-commercial seed sharing follows the Russell guidelines to a T. They're just basically repeated. So you're going to find ours in the Arizona Administrative Code, Title 3. It's under Chapter 4, Department of Agriculture, under Plant Services Division. And you always check for the latest date. I found out the hard way as a seed provider and someone that needed permits to be able to sell seed in my own personal work. Check the dates on the actual code. So you'll see this is just exactly what Russell had said. Non-commercial seed sharing, the definition, which is you cannot transfer money or compensation. And then you may not expect or create the expectation the seeds must be returned in exchange for receiving seeds, because at that point in time, it becomes a commercial transaction. And then of course, it's just a repeat of what Russell had put in the amendment of what the label should look like. Elise, how am I on time?
You're good. You've got
Okay,
like 25 minutes left.
cool. Okay, I'm gonna kind of slow down a little bit and talk about how do you identify these different seed packets? Like, so if you get a seed packet, how do you identify what it is so you know it's safe for your library? And so we're going to talk about a few terms. I'm sure a lot of people are aware of um, what some of these are, but I just want to, how do you find it on a seed packet? Like someone walks in and they're like, I'm giving you 20 seed packets, and you're looking at them and going, should I put these in my library? Should I not? Like, what should I do? So these are just some ways that you can identify on the packets. And hybrids or F1s are sometimes known as F1s are one of the ones that are, I don't want to call it contentious, but they can be kind of a question. So with hybrids, I want you to imagine yourself as a brand new gardener. Or if you are a brand new gardener, I want you to kind of imagine yourself in that place. When you are learning to garden, failure is the worst thing. You just feel automatically like, what did I do wrong? I don't know what happened. Someone help me. And I know master gardeners out there, you've been out there with people, you've been there. Um, I personally keep hybrids out of the seed libraries because I am focusing on open pollinated, I'm focusing on sustainability, I'm focusing on people being able to grow and save seed and in a linear kind of form. So I tend to keep hybrids out. I do have fellow seed nerds like me that like to break apart the hybrid. So, hybrids are, crosses. So they like to break apart the crosses and mess with the crosses and then, be able to grow out, these new exciting varieties or, just do science experiments. But if you were a brand new gardener, you have 100, let's say you have 100 square feet, and you're going to feed your family, you got everything going, you've lined out, you got your water, you got your fertilizer, you're good to go, and something grows out weird and you can't feed your family. Where does that fall on the responsibility line? Like it's not who's to blame, but what conversations can we have to make sure that that doesn't happen again? And that's why I keep hybrids out of the seed library, not because I don't want to acknowledge their existence or because I don't think they're an important part of our food industry, but for beginning gardeners that are saving seed, it's not necessarily the most appropriate seed source to guarantee some sort of success. So it's up to you as a seed librarian how you want to do it. I have a free box, and we'll talk about it later, the free box, what I do with when I get hybrids. Um, so I put them in the free box. But how can you tell? Well, you're gonna look for some different like words or terms. You're gonna look for F1, indicating a hybrid. And then you can read descriptions. Sometimes you have to be a detective when people drop off seeds. Sometimes you have to be like, is this going to be appropriate for my library? And so you can do a little bit of research. So in this case, I was like, what? I just found this picture because I was going to throw it on this presentation, but I'm like, what is this? So I Googled it and I came up with, oh, Fedco Seeds carries it. So if you know Fedco Seeds, like, you're going to get the straight information. They're going to be completely straight with you. So in this case, I was able to find their description and they say they were super excited over their variety, but its utility patent violated Fedco seed ethics. So they trialed out this particular broccoli. It's beautiful broccoli, you can tell. But right there, it talks about that that Fedco has seed ethics, which means that they're not going to use utility patented particular like sorry, big words today, utility patented varieties. So in this case, I know it's going to be an F1 hybrid. I know there's not going to be a patent on it. And so I feel comfortable, being able to definitely put that in my free box, but also, maybe I might just shuffle that one over to the community gardens or the master gardeners and be like, look, you can't save the seed, I don't think, but you want to grow this out? So just do a little bit of research on it. The more descriptive it is, the more likely it is. Um, Actually, I'm going to hold that thought. Well, we're going to get to some other how descriptive words are used. But so look for hybrids as an F1 or the word hybrid. Patented is always a contentious conversation. I personally I work with colleagues that are heavily into patented seed breeding and have active utility patents, and here I am in the same room as a little heirloom um, farm standing up for the heirloom industry. And funny story, I was asking a question on Facebook to a group of market farmers, and I'm doing some research with a tribal farm, and I was like, "Hey, has anyone successfully sold heirlooms for a higher price based on the name? Like, have they twisted the market name a little bit and made it really exciting and got a higher price for it?" And you would have thought that I just I don't know, like it was the most shocking conversation I've had. Heirlooms are dirty, heirlooms are bad, heirlooms are going to be the death of us all, we're going to all die. And I was just like, whoa. So as a researcher, I'm obviously going to jump into this at some point in the next few years, but as someone that works with in this particular world, I just found it interesting that the dynamic of what clean seed is and dirty seed is just very, there's a line there. So that was a sidebar, but yeah, so back to patented seed and that you're probably going to know from the name of the company if where that seed and if they're heavily involved in seed breeding. That's going to be if someone walks in and hands you a package of Seminus big beef, tomatoes, it might have a little trigger in the back of your head like I probably can't put this in my seed library, and I probably don't want to even, I mean, I put it in my free box, but even then, like, is that something I want to mess with? You can go and look at the site, and it just really amazes me the difference in descriptions between a company that's selling for these patented varieties, like features, robust disease resistant package. When I think of, when I'm working with different vegetables, I'm not thinking of a robust disease resistant package. I understand the reason behind it. I just wouldn't label it that way. um, but I understand it and I understand the importance of it. So it comes with a lot of disease resistance, and that's why it was bred. It was old time flavor, good fruit size, and then disease resistance. So you're gonna find that. Do you want this in your seed library? I personally wouldn't recommend it. And I wouldn't even really consider putting it in my free box just because it is patented and I don't know. I don't know where that seed's going to end up. So it's just to me is kind of a wiggly place to be, and it's up to each seed librarian. I did follow the trail of where you can buy this, and you can buy it from a lot of different places. So I went to Johnny's to see if Johnny's is great to actually identify hybrids, treated, and sometimes they actually will put on there if it's patented. In this case, it's not patented, but they do say it's a hybrid. But you can tell with all of the actual disease resistance on there that it probably is a patented variety. You wouldn't know looking at a Johnny's thing without going backwards, but going from Seminus to Johnny's, you would kind of see like, that there might be a patent involved. If you are working with flowers or cutting, I don't have a slide of this. So if you're taking cuttings from plants, a lot of times the nurseries will have a patent symbol on it or something like that. So you may find it easier on cuttings than you do on seeds. Again, this is part of that paper that I talked about earlier, a guide to seed intellectual property rights. And this is a really great table that was done by the author, Paulina Jenny. And to zoom in here, this talks about the different types of IP protections. And then, can I save this seed? Is it allowed? And it talks about if you can or not. My personal favorite, I love the open source seed initiative pledge. I don't have a slide on it, and if you're interested, go check it out. But yeah, that is savable seed. You just can't then patent that seed for yourself. So if it's OSSI, you can grow it, you can save the seed. It's great, but you cannot later patent it. These are some of the resources. There's a lot more out there. I know I didn't have a chance to put it on here, but there's a seed toolbox, seed library toolbox that I was going to add on here, but definitely make sure you're checking your seeds. If someone's donating like herb seeds or dye plant seeds or things like that, make sure they're not on the state or federal noxious weed list. Here's the guide to the seed intellectual property rights. The Sustainable Economies Law Center has seed law resources. And this paper is great. The Seed Libraries and Food Justice Cultivating an Effective Legal and Policy Environment from Georgetown is also very great. And they're lawyers, so they actually like talk law. And then the conversation is always around open pollinated or heirloom. And they're not used interchangeably. A lot of times people will say, okay, and I've said it before, heirlooms are always open pollinated, but open pollinated are not always heirlooms. And I was like set on that, but however, then I realized that there are actual plants that don't necessarily reproduce in a particular manner that would require pollination. And so in that case, open pollinated doesn't actually apply to those heirlooms. But for the argument, we're going to say that most heirlooms are open pollinated, the majority. Both are acceptable for seed libraries in most cases. There are obviously there are open pollinated that can be patented, and it's a whole nother layer that we're not going to get into. And how you're going to find that is they're going to be it's a label, it's a marketing, it's a way of living. So you're going to find them to be very, very descriptive most of the times from some seed companies, and they're going to be very proud. And so they're going to have names that are very important and tie into a particular event, ideal, or something like that. So in this case, like Renee's Garden, the Legion of Honor heirloom crimson poppies tie into the poppies that you get from the American Legion. But on there, they're going to say heirloom, nostalgia. They're going to, use a lot of the terms that are bringing the history in the past. And then for example, in here, the Mexican sunflower, open pollinated and non-GMO. So right there is open pollinated. Then these two examples, there's a Golden California Wonder heirloom, and it'll give you sometimes, especially with Southern Exposure or Hudson Valley or a lot of the other seed companies, they're going to tell you the story as much as they can. And then this one, Adaptive Seeds, another one of my favorites, is they mention it's open pollinated. So they started growing this butternut variety. They bought every variety they could, and then they allowed them to cross. And then they selected for early ripening, and then they stabilized it. So therefore it's open pollinated, and this would be great for your seed library if you wanted a butternut early remix. And the question that comes up is, what do you do with random seed drop-offs? And this one is a shout out to my colleague who handed me this seed, Jamaican thyme. You can tell we both could not spell Jamaican that day. So he just handed me this bag, and he's like, here, this is for the seed library. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? And I had to have pause because luckily I know what this plant is because it's in our work kitchen and I stare at it every day. It takes over the window. But I was like, I'm sorry, what? You use words when you're handing me this bag of seeds. So I did, a lot of research, and by a lot I Googled it, right? And I found the plant that I was looking for. So it's Jamaican or Spanish thyme, also known as Cuban oregano. It's has soft fuzzy leaves and has this stuff. So I was comfortable with it. The thing is he gave me a bag of plant parts and leaves and the flowers, and there's only like 4 seeds in there by the time I cleaned it. So I grabbed it, and I'm gonna grow it out and be able to put it in the seed library. But you just want to kind of make sure that if someone hands you a random bag of seeds, you ask questions. And it's really hard. I get it when you're like, you're doing 10 different things. You're running all these different things. And like, I don't really have time to ask these questions, but what is the variety? What type of vegetable, fruit, herb, or flower is it? Because a lot of times people will hand you squash seeds and be like, here's some squash seeds or tomato seeds, and you're like, awesome, what is it? And they're like, I don't know, I just grew it. It's like, awesome. And then I call my master gardeners, I'm like, hey, want to do a grow out? And they're like, yeah. So it's not necessarily a stopping point. It's just, do you want to put that in your seed library without knowing the information? And then where was it grown? Like, what is the general location? So if you know your town, you kind of know where it was grown, and that just gives you a piece of like how it was grown. Was it in a clean garden with limited disease, or was it just wild harvested? Like, how was it grown? Is it clean? Is there evidence of insects? Is there mold, bacteria, or fungus? And then remember, seed is a package deal, right? So seed comes in with everything it needs to contain itself to be able to grow, and it has its own little food package and everything like that in order to germinate. If there's damage to that seed coat or to that seed, you're not going to have good germination, or you might introduce diseases. So if you have broken seed, it's likely not a good thing. You may need to throw the seed away. The overlying mantra is you want to keep um, disease, insects, and issues out of other people's gardens. And I've been there when I've looked at seed and been like, I can't throw this away. This is seed. How do I throw this away? And had to have a talk with myself and be like, would you want this in your garden? And it's been like, okay, no. So I just throw it away, walk away really quick. And I'm just like, I can do this. Um, People do compost it. Again, if your compost is not getting high enough to kill any diseases, the seeds, anything like that, you may not be able actually killing the issue or removing the issue from future gardens. So just be mindful when you're taking in seed. I love seed. I love random seed drop-offs. I think it's the greatest mystery, but at the end of the day, it's also sometimes not appropriate for the seed library. A lot of times, Lowe's and Home Depot and Walmart will drop off bags of seeds. So what happens if a business just drops off a bag of seeds? Well, ask the business questions before you accept the seeds. I had a thing this year, and we were talking about it at one of our seed classes. I walked into Tractor Supply, and I walked into their new greenhouse, which was 95 degrees, and the seeds were in there. There's all their seeds were in there, and I was like, oh no, no, no! You just know, like you have to move those out of 95-degree weather. Seeds don't they germinate in that particular environment. They don't store in that environment. So we were joking with the manager. He's like, I know it came down from corporate, but I'm like, well, I mean, you're selling people the potential of dead seeds, so might be something to address. But on the other hand, if those go to someone's seed library donation, are those actually going to grow? So that's going to be the question. How was it stored? Was it exposed to high temperatures? Was it exposed to mold? What was it exposed to in its previous life? Because again, we're trying to help make sure that people have access to food. And if we're just basically introducing disease into their gardens, it's we're just taking them back a step. So ask yourself that question: is that something you can add to your seed library? And then we separate seed types. We'll go through and we'll just separate out all of the heirloom and open pollinated goes into the seed library. Anything patented, trademarked, treated, or not sure, we put into the free box. The patented is always just the area where I'm just like, I don't know, just because patent laws are always changing, and I don't want to be the one person that gets the entire seed library industry, sorry, the seed community in trouble. And that just terrifies me. So I have a free box, and it's not part of the seed library. It's with the seed library, but it's separate. And anything that is clean and safe for gardeners, but doesn't follow like the seed library guidelines that, because I do go by state and I do follow, just necessary cleaning and cleanliness guidelines. I put it in the free box. So I set like, hey, 10 packets, whatever, whatever the allowance of. And then I just make sure it's noted somewhere that the seed is separate from the seed library. So people aren't confused. Like if there's an issue and they call the state and they're like, hey, I had poor germination from this particular place and I got it from the seed library. And, you know, someone looks into it, they're not like, wait, your seed library is, this bad seed. It's like, no, it was a separate box. It's a free box. I felt it was safe to go there, but I can't guarantee anything. One of the things, germination is like per the Russell Amendment, it's not required, but I love to introduce it as a community event, because it adds that additional education layer of understanding the importance of what germination is and why it is important in seeds. So I make it, I like to see it a fun event. I haven't had a chance to really do much beyond just working with the libraries, but bringing in school kids or bringing in, a lot of times we've done, I'm a veteran, so I've done veteran work where we start seeds and then we watch them germinate over a week, and then we all like compare data and see, like, did it germinate? Like, what'd you do? What did you do differently than you? How did the plants respond? Partner with your master gardeners, work with your schools and nonprofits. It's a citizen science opportunity, and it also protects the gardeners so they are sure that the food they grow will be edible. And that is tied to the true to type. When people donate seed back to the seed library, I try to send it to a community garden or a master gardener first, if possible, to grow it out, just to make sure that it is what it is. Pollination is very, very complex, and we can do our best to make sure things don't get cross-pollinated. But sometimes, there might be accidents and things like that. So if I'm ever like questionable about a variety or um a situation, I will call up, the community gardens or master gardeners and say, hey, do you want to grow this out and see what it is? And we'll just put the seed in storage and then grow it out and see what happens. So that's another thing that I do. Um, Again, it goes with that comfort zone. I don't want to, give them dirty seed or something like that, master gardener dirty seed. So I just make sure it seed's clean and good, and then we'll grow it out for the type. And I was taught that by Bill, who was a horticulture guru down in Greenlee County. He taught me all about that. So I just would have had no issues with it. And he's like, he ran the same gardens down there, and he's like, you should do this. So this was actually a slide that was on this Canva presentation, but I like it. So let's sow the seeds of sustainability today for a bountiful tomorrow. And then I added, seed librarians are superheroes, so never forget that. I am so thankful for what everyone's doing and what we do for the communities. And so thank you so much. And here's my email. And do you have any questions?
Awesome. Thank you, Anita. That was awesome. I'm going to slowly go through. I just want to remind everyone that we are recording, and we will be sending out the link of the recording to everyone who RSVP'd, as well as posting to a YouTube account. I'm not sure if it's the University of Arizona Cooperative Extension, but we will also let you know the YouTube account. Anita, do you have documentation on the do's and don'ts of donation available to the public?
Let's see here. And by documentation, do you mean like flyers, or do I keep like documentation of the do's and don'ts? Um,
Andrea, if you want to kind of mention, I wonder if it's kind of if this is resources, maybe? Ah, something that the public can refer to before they donate.
mhm. Yeah. So I put up some signs, and Canva is my friend because it's great to make all kinds of signs that are applicable for multiple levels of people that come into your seed library. And I basically say, we love your seed, we love you, we love your seed, we want your seed. However, here's what we can't take. And if you have that, um, encourage a lot of other things. But if you're able to, provide like clean seed, and it was grown true to type, which means it's gonna, be what it says on the label or the package or whatever you write or whatever you get, then we love it, your seed. So yeah, we do. And then I include a binder of where the public can come in, and it has all of the pollination guidelines, if you want to save seed, how to grow it, how to grow the different varieties. And it's just basically an overview of cabbage, broccoli, squashes, things like that. It's not each particular variety. So I include that also. And then on my free box, I just put on there, like this seed is not in the seed library, but you're welcome to take it.
Awesome. Um, Someone asked, how do you manage the collections? You have a data set, SOPs. I'm not sure what SOPs are, but do you have a data set?
Standard operating procedures.
Ah, yeah.
So I have an Excel spreadsheet that is like pages and pages long. And so I will, every time I get seeds in from either a donation or a grant or just buy them in, I put it in my spreadsheet. I put in the approximate amount. And then when we do seed packaging, we do a certain amount in each package. Um, my philosophy is that I can get a seed package from, or I can get a seed packet from the store, and that can go to one gardener, but that's one gardener able to grow it. And so I want to maximize the number of people that have access to these seeds because they are what I would consider higher quality. So we do break up the packages into smaller. So those will go in the Excel spreadsheet, and then how many I take to each seed library. And at the end of the year, I count out what I have left. And so I know who took what. And that also helps me with planning on what to order the next year.
Organization is key, clearly.
Mhm.
How do you get the libraries to say yes? And did they provide the card drawers?
Okay, so the libraries 100% are generally on board because they and I know most there's a good chunk of librarians out there. And you guys know when people come in, they're like, do you have seed library or do you have this or do you have that? And then a lot of times the librarians will use that as an opportunity to be able to put their gardening books with it. Or, if it's like a kids reading month, they'll put the kids garden books with it. So they use it to cross market a lot of their books. And I don't actually have a library that I work with that has card catalogs or anything like that. So we have baskets, we have glass jars, we have toolboxes, like from Lowe's, the red ones that you pull out. We have toolboxes. We have all kinds of different things. I believe, I don't know if she's on here, Michelle, one of my master gardeners, she sent me a link for a $1,500 card catalog and to be able to buy one of the old school card catalogs. And I was like, great, but you know how much seed I can buy for $1,500? Like, I love the view and I love the idea, but if I have X number of dollars, I'm gonna ship it to the seeds. But most of the times the seed libraries ask us to help stock it, which is not sustainable. Unfortunately, I can't continue to do that. So just get with your librarian and be like, hey, can we do this? It can be small and then grow. Like, can we work together?
Awesome. That's it for questions I see. I've put Anita's email into the chat. So what we're going to do is we're going to give everyone about 10 minutes to go